Is this thing on? I'm going to do a follow-up into the world of evolutionary psychology. Now, the things I'm going to discuss are not necessarily tied to evolutionary psychology. It's sort of they're broader psychology concepts that many other subfields of psychology examine, but framed through the lens of evolutionary psychology is what I'll be doing with it. So, in terms of the previous evolutionary psychology video, I talked about why in evolutionary psychology most of the work is sort of in sex research and sort of what leads to reproductive activity between men and women. This is sort of the flip side of evolutionary psychology, which is things related to human behavior that increase or decrease our ability to survive in the natural world, natural selection. Now, sort of in the ideas of natural selection is where there has been problematic ethical arguments made, particularly around things like race, things like gender, particularly biological sex, that sometimes are argued, oh, this race, this particular culture, this particular gender, sex has certain natural advantages and therefore are more superior to the other ones. And that's not the arguments I'm going to be making. So if you're looking for that kind of form of fake evolutionary psychology, go away. I'm not in the mood to deal with violent thoughts right now, but I am going to talk about what leads to violent thoughts in a series of videos. The dark triad is a collection of personality traits. I don't know if they're actually diagnosable psychological disorders. I think a couple of them are, but they're traits that individuals may have that are considered immoral, I would say, by a vast majority. So they are behavioral traits that are generally considered unethical. These traits are Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. And I'll go over what each of them means. So, psychopathy is when individuals have no empathy, meaning that they can't really view other people as sort of human, can't see their way of life. Basically, it's different from narcissism, but they lack empathy, meaning that they can't put themselves into other people's shoes. They can't think of other people's experiences. They only think of their own experience. Not all psychopaths are violent, but psychopathy has a potentiality to increase the risk of violence because those who are psychopaths will want what they want the most and won't really consider others' wants. Which is different from narcissism. Narcissism is just a high ego. It's basically sort of solipsism is the most extreme form of narcissism. Basically, I am a god is what solipsism is. It's I am the only one in the universe. I am supreme. I am a god. Narcissism is sort of a little bit tempered back solipsism, which is just I am really powerful. I am really strong. I am really good at whatever I do. So a lot of people have called Donald Trump a narcissist because a lot of what he says is about protecting his image and his own self reflection within social communities. I don't know if Trump is a narcissist. I wouldn't maybe not put him, but he does have a strong ego. He does have an ego that is hard to sort of say no to, and that's sort of a good sign that you're dealing with someone with a fragile ego that wants to be viewed as powerful, wants to be viewed as can do no wrong. And that's sort of what narcissism is. It's I can do no wrong. So sort of I was in a forensic psychology class, and we were talking about a serial killer who had traveled to source their victims away, significantly away, and now most of their victims were their lives were ended at their central location, but they were still going, and so going to pick them up from a further distance. And sort of my idea is that those who are narcissists are more likely to do that they won't get stopped. They'll be able to function in a generally social circumstance for a longer period of time than a typical psychopath. So that was my theory there. And then the last of the dark triad is Machiavellianism, which is really just social scheming, typically for your own purposes, but it actually could also be for collective's own purposes. Machiavellianism isn't necessarily just for yourself, whereas sort of when you're looking at psychopathy and narcissism, it's definitely self-oriented in terms of why they exist. Now, where I'm going to put in the evolutionary spin is that to some degree they were useful in early humanity. Take, for instance, facing a natural predator like a lion or a panther or a cougar. You have to have a stronger confidence in yourself to be able to survive that situation. Those who are not confident in themselves are either to run or to be eaten. And when you grow up in an eat or be eaten environment, having certain traits that are very self-oriented or very collective-oriented in terms of getting through whatever purpose you need, whatever situation you are in to survive, it's beneficial. You won't be able to survive without it in those circumstances. You won't be able to survive a winter if you think you won't be able to survive a winter. So, having a stronger sense of self can lead people to do things that they wouldn't have done otherwise. But they are considered antisocial, generally speaking. And antisocial does have also potentiality for people to do things that'll cause other people to organize against them. Whether justified or not, whether reasonable or not. If you are sort of more self-oriented, if you are willing to take risks where the ends will justify the means, then you're going to face potential people who won't like whatever decision that you make. You're not trying your best to have a generally amicable social outcome for all parties involved. You need empathy in those situations. You need situations where you say, "Oh, I'm not the center of everything. I can take a step back in this particular circumstance." You need to say, okay, there might be some ethical considerations between doing this particular action. So the dark triad traits were good for humanity in terms of surviving in our natural habitat, but we have evolved to become more social, and they are antisocial traits. So they're not as particularly effective in modern society because modern society is more social, more oriented between groups, which means that the evolutionary trait will eventually cease out. But the thing is that it's how evolution works is over long periods of time, and the thing is that it's still like the dark triad traits are still actually, in terms of like continuing your genes, effective tools, because being narcissistic, it reduces your aversion to taking social risks. Being psychopathic, again, also to some degree, reduces your propensity to being averse to certain risks, and sort of those who want intimate relationships, it's viewed as a risk. You're potentially either producing offspring with somebody, or you're getting into a long-term commitment that could have economic consequences. So those circumstances, they're high risk, and so having traits that will reduce that risk aversion will also continue to reproduce benefit. And so people who have dark triad traits might actually end up reproducing more, and then feeding the evolutionary side of the psychology. But I only wanted to talk about the natural elements today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.